and have over 200 volunteers. And just a little bit about our volunteers. Unlike mentors or service providers, CASAs play a formal and I would say a very influential role in the legal system, often becoming the only consistent adult presence in the lives of the children we serve. I call them our earthly angels. But they are everyday people from all walks of life, and crucially, they are the voices for our children in the courts, who judges listen to when making really critical, life-changing decisions about that child's future. But each CASA is assigned to just one child or one sibling group at a time, which is really unique because everyone else who's working with that child or that youth have multiple cases. CASAs, they are responsible for visiting their child at least twice monthly. They meet with teachers and social workers and attorneys and everyone involved in the case. They advocate for medical, educational needs, emotional needs. And one of the most important things that our CASAs do is submit court reports. And recently at a CASA event that one of our judges spoke at, she described a CASA's role, which she characterized as the eyes and ears in the court, and the ones who are helping judges see the dark canyons that judges don't get to see, and that because of that, judges are able to make the best decisions for that child in that moment. And although our CASAs come from all walks of life, it is a thorough process to become a CASA, including 35 hours of pre-service training and background checks before being sworn in and assigned to a case. And they are also required 12 hours of continuing training annually, and each CASA is assigned to one advocate supervisor who are the professional staff on my team to provide them with the support on every case. And I'm going to hand it over to Taisha, Taisha Alexis, who is our program director, and she's going to speak briefly about the program side.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining tonight, and Nicole for sharing. As Nicole shared, each of our volunteers are supported by an advocate supervisor, and highlighted there too, our advocate supervisors assist them in navigating and troubleshooting anything that comes up on their cases, as well as being able to support them in each of the court hearings. Not only are our advocate supervisors supporting our CASAs, they're finding different resources and finding effective ways that we can advocate both inside and outside of the courtroom. That is also done. We have a good portion of the young people we serve part of transitional age youth. We categorize transitional age youth as 14 to 22, and we know that that is specifically a population that definitely needs the support and stability. So we have our transitional age youth coordinator who specifically works on resources and supporting with transitioning into adulthood. With that, we also have our youth advisory board. We have young people, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but a plug that they'll have their youth advisory board forum, November 1st at the Cambridge Public Library, if anyone's nearby, that they'll be able to share a little bit about how they view the system, how the system has impacted them. But it really is a space in which the young people, it's a 10-month program, the young people are provided a stipend of $500 and are being able to be part of an invigorating curriculum to be able to support them in transitioning. And then their capstone project is this youth forum. So just wanted to highlight that, wanted to keep it in that time and kind of share a little bit about our program. And again, as Penny shared, we're open to answering any questions in the end, but thank you guys for hearing a little bit more about our program.
Thank you both. And I so appreciate how quickly you covered a tremendous amount of information. That was great. And I see you've dropped something in the chat for people who would like more information. Next, we'll be hearing from Hema, right? I think your slides are next.
Great. I'm just getting control of the slide deck. All right.
I'm just going to interrupt. Is everyone seeing the slides? If someone cannot see the slides on their screen, they should just mention it on the chat.
Yeah, right now I'm still seeing Boston CASA, so we just need to advance them. There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Oh, sorry. There.
I think we'll get there. I'll just scroll ahead to, there we go.
Sorry about that.
Well, welcome. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Penny and the whole TPC team. It's such an honor to be here. We are a new grantee and just so grateful for this opportunity to really be in community with you all. I love the theme tonight of collaboration and how this is really modeling that spirit. So really grateful for your support. So I'm Hema Saring-Saminsky from Jane Doe Inc., or JDI as we like to call ourselves, and we are the Massachusetts Coalition Against Sexual Assault and Domestic Violence. And we have a brand new mission, and it is that we mobilize collective power and resources to realize a safer, healthier, freer Massachusetts beyond abuse and violence. And I'll talk a little bit about what a coalition is. We are the federally recognized state coalition for Massachusetts. And we bring together 65 community-based and culturally specific programs statewide. Every state has a coalition, and we play that role for Massachusetts. And among our programs are really a range of types of advocacy efforts. There are rape crisis centers, there are domestic violence programs, shelter-based programs, human trafficking focused programs that are providing culturally and linguistically specific services and population specific services. So what we're looking at is everything from providing shelter, hotline crisis support, medical advocacy, legal advocacy, and the prevention of further harm. And so that's really represented among our membership. So the question is, what's the role of the coalition? We play many roles, primarily mobilizing that collective power. That is what makes us in this moment stronger. We are stronger together. And that's really the spirit that I think we enter into this work as a coalition. Let me just slide ahead a little. If I can, oh, there we go. I'll talk a little bit about a few different points of how we do our work. Our work includes systems advocacy, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time in this intro talking about what that means. But really what we do is advance survivor-centered policies and budget priorities that promote safety, promote our collective community care and equity. We also work on education and prevention efforts. So that means as a coalition, we provide training, technical assistance or support to the field. There are over 1,200 advocates among the 65 programs that I spoke of, and information changes and policies and compliance requirements change, the landscape changes. And so we have a unique role because we are not in the day-to-day work of crisis response, we can draw from the knowledge and wisdom of our national partners, of other coalitions to amplify what needs the most attention now. And we listen to our membership. If someone says, hey, I really love a refresher on confidentiality requirements, we can offer that training to folks. Probably among all of this, what makes both those components of our work possible is really our role in that kind of membership support, community building, movement leadership type of work. And to talk a bit about that, we bring people together. I don't know if you've all heard of folks talking about the kind of isolation that is being experienced by communities who are dedicated to really anything to make the world a better place right now. It is hard, and folks are working so many hours, experiencing so many layers of our own experiences of oppression, being part of communities who are touched by harm and violence. And as we navigate that, the collective efforts to support our larger communities to support survivors can be very heavy and very isolating. And so we bring people together. We're able to bring together, our programs are statewide, all the way from the Vineyard to Pittsfield. And we're able to bring folks together, often by Zoom, sometimes in person, to share, what's working for a shelter program out in rural Massachusetts and Western Mass. What could they offer by way of support to another program in a similarly situated community? What can we learn from one another about how courts are doing what they need to be doing or not across the Commonwealth? So those are the kinds of membership support and community building that we're doing. And in this moment in time, we are certainly, and I'll talk about this a little bit later when we get to the panel, we're leaning into how we can collectively respond to the various challenges that are being imposed on this field in this moment when we're working with survivors who are facing vulnerabilities because of their immigration status or gender identity or expression or any range of identities that would make somebody more vulnerable right now. I'll just, if I have another minute, briefly touch on this question of systems advocacy. We were having a great conversation with a program today of how sometimes the world of policy and systems advocacy can feel very far away. It can feel far away from the on-the-ground work that feels more tangible. And honestly, as somebody who practices as an attorney for many years and then went into policy, I actually resisted policy work for so long because I thought it was out of touch with what communities needed. And it wasn't until I was introduced to some mentors who said, it doesn't have to be that way. And in fact, it shouldn't be that way, that it really shifted my perspective on the power of policy and systems work. It's really what systems advocacy is about. It's changing the conditions of our various systems, our courts, housing systems, child welfare, hospitals, to really shape survivors' lives in better ways. It's transforming those systems. And all of that work really starts with the wisdom of survivors and the advocates who support them. And really every single win that we've had from a policy or systems perspective started with a handful of advocates or survivors who said, there is a problem here, and this is harming people. We need to do something about it. And through conversations and advocacy and finding the right people to talk to, the folks in power, bringing systems together, that is an example of survivor-led systems change. And it's really bringing those truths to places that hold a lot of power to make change that gives me hope. And as I see this happen over and over again, it's really, it's beautiful and inspiring, even in such dark times, to see the words of survivors and the stories of survivors and advocates make their way into the retelling by legislators or by other folks with a lot of power in systems. So I will wrap up to say that, just really systems advocacy is about listening to the wisdom of survivors and communities and making sure we hold that truth to power. We know that those, as incredible people like Ayanna Pressley and others say, that those closest to the pain should be closest to power. And so we try to amplify that spirit in our work. And I will pause there to hear from our other friends hear from Jonathan, and certainly get back to how you can support our work and talk more about ways to get involved as we move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Hema. And certainly last but not least, Student Clinic and Jonathan Goldman. And I guess we need a transfer of remote control, our new technology here. And I'm sorry, we need to I guess, go backwards. I was thinking that we had a different slide order, so might be a brief adjustment. Thank you, Jonathan.
See if I can get us there. There we go. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Goldman. I'm the Executive Director of the Student Clinic for Immigrant Justice. I'm going to be sharing the story of our work today, but I also am glad this is the first photo that we have here to share because the work that you're going to hear about is made possible because of the amazing students that are part of this program, some of whom you see right here. Sharon love back to all of you for supporting the work that we do. So who is the Student Clinic for Immigrant Justice? What is the work that we do? So SCIJ's approach, it's a three-pronged approach: train, mobilize, organize. Let's see if I can go to the next slide here. We train students in immigration law and community organizing. We mobilize students to provide legal support to asylum seekers, and we organize around local change for those involved in our work. So our training program, it's actually going on right now, where we train students during the fall in immigration law and community organizing. They learn about how do these systems work, how do they provide legal support to asylum seekers, and how do they also organize to actually make change in their community. Because I think, as has been noted today, legal intervention is a component of many folks' journeys here in this country, but it is only one piece of that broader experience as well. And so we train students on those two components. Most of our students are immigrants and first-generation Americans. And then after they complete that training program, they then dive headfirst into getting involved in that work. So on the organizing side, we have students, clients, community members coming together to develop and launch campaigns that address systemic change on one level or another, whether that is making it so we can't have detention centers that are holding our community members, or if it is thinking about how do we make sure that someone is not going to be evicted for unjust reasons based on their immigration status? How do we build the campaigns to protect people in our community? And we do that through these monthly community meetings, bringing folks together, building out skills, learning about how do these systems actually work and how can members lead the change on those issues. The other big thing that we do is we try and make sure, as much as we can, we are addressing the huge issue of 3.4 million pending immigration cases, the vast majority of whom do not have representation. And the way we address that is by having students paired up with immigration attorneys, both private immigration attorneys and attorneys from other nonprofits. And students work with them almost as like a paralegal, doing everything from interviewing clients, helping collect evidence, drafting documents, a big bulk of that work that goes into those cases, all of which are pro bono, and work with folks to be able to make sure that they have representation. Because when you have representation, it makes a huge difference. Without representation, people lose about 90% of their cases, but with representation, people are about 5 times more likely to win. So it's a huge change maker, but it is also a way for people to be brought into that organizing community, so they're not isolated moving through that legal process as well. To give you a sense of like what this all looks like in practice, here is Josue. He joined our program. He was part of our very first cohort at UMass Boston. After he got trained, he ended up working on a bunch of asylum cases. And then when he graduated, he was like, I want to keep doing this work. This is what I want to do with my life. I want to go to law school. And coincidentally, at the same time, we had just gotten a email from Alyssa Weinberger, who is an attorney at Metro West Legal Services. And she was like, hey, we really could use a paralegal. You have any of those students that recently graduated that could help out? And I was like, literally perfect timing. Let me connect you with Josue. He got started there not long after. Another one of our students also got hired there as well. And I think it shows that impact that we have, not just in that immediate moment of students being part of the program, but also when they graduate. So not only has Josue gone off and do that, he's also come back and helped train future cohorts of students. And so there's been this continued way of students being able to be connected to that, and the way that SCIJ contributes to this ecosystem. As I mentioned, most of our students are immigrants and first-generation Americans. We have programs at UMass Boston, Worcester State, and Brown. And it really is this amazing community of folks that continue to be connected for years and years. We have student representation on our board, and it's really honoring that legacy of student-led organizing, especially within the immigration movement, which has been present for decades and decades. A lot of us think about it being just back to DACA, but this has been going on since well into the early 1900s. And so we really want to continue to invest in that sort of growth. We've trained over 154 students. We have about another cohort of 40 students we're training right now. So we'll be just about at 200 at the end of this semester. We've worked with over 350 asylum seekers, and we have about 100 active members right now involved in our organizing work as well. I know that immigration is such a sort of in the news and also impacting many of us personally. I'm originally from Denmark. Happy to share more about my story later. We have some information here on the screen, also sharing a couple of resources in the chat as well. We have an upcoming workshop if you're like, I want to get involved in immigration stuff, but I don't know where to start. We're doing a workshop on the 18th. We also have a fundraiser happening in Boston on December 4th that you can get plugged into. I've also shared my email, our alerts list, and then I also shared what's called our link tree, which has some like quick ways you can take action as well. So looking forward to diving more into that, and excited to be here with two amazing other organizations and being here with all of you here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan, Hema, and Nicole. And this ends the, I'll call, more formal portion of our time together. So I think if we want to, let's see, so we have what, 26 people? So what executive decision here, folks? Do we have one big screen or do we keep it a little more formal? What do people think? Guess we'll keep it a little more. It would appear we're keeping.
Having the four of you on the screen featured, I think is perfect.
Okay, great. So if you have questions, start popping them in the chat, and we will have a general discussion now for a few minutes, and then we'll make an effort to address individual questions from participants. The first question is, each of your missions targets conditions that have immediate impact on individual safety and security in one way or another. And how do you balance the day-to-day tactical imperatives of that with strategic actions around systemic change? And I think we've talked one way or another about systemic change with each of you. So would love to hear your thoughts. Let's start. We'll go Hema, Nicole, Jonathan. How's that in that order for this question?
Sure. Yeah. It's a great question. So I think this is where I feel like the strength of the coalition comes out in our ability to hold our member programs who are in that more day-to-day crisis work, responsive work. I think right now we have a collective conversation. I hear it come up all the time around the difference between what does it mean when we are forced so often to be reactive, where and how do we collectively create the strategy and vision for what we do want to build towards. And so I think that is something that we have been in a lot of conversation, both amongst ourselves as a membership, as a team, and also with our larger membership and partners. I think the balance is really holding the importance of both of those needs, right? On any given day, we may be responding to a program who is dealing with a situation with a housing authority or with a court that really needs some immediate attention and intervention. So we may be a more reactive liaison with that program to address, okay, let's troubleshoot this. Let's get into it. Let's figure out who do we need to talk to? How do we get you in touch with the right people? Who else is dealing with this problem? And then we immediately shift to that kind of, who else is experiencing this problem? Is this systemic? Is this broader than just this individual scenario? So we're able to ask those questions and at times bring our voice to situations that can sort of speak to larger problems that might leave an individual program feeling a little bit more vulnerable to bring that up on their own. And so that is one way in which we can participate in that.
The air cover, right? You're talking about air cover, really, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Same question for you, Nicole. Would you like me to restate it, or was it clear?
I think it's pretty clear.
Good.
So, I mean, just to somewhat dovetail off of what Hema is saying, you know, our kids and our families, the social issues and everything that's happening in our country, it touches on all of their lives, right, in different ways. And so we really do rely on, in part, our CASAs who are working with our kids to inform us about what is going on so that we can be proactive and really lean into our partners and looking at resources, asking questions of DCF and the courts and how other organizations are, because we're all dealing with a lot of the same issues, you know, in different ways. And, you know, really leaning into our partners and helping our families to access those resources in the best way that we possibly can.
Thank you. And so what I hear you saying is the importance of collaboration, right? Using not going it alone, but the power of the collective, which was something Hema referenced as well. Jonathan? And something else I'm hearing is the importance of volunteers, which I know is critical to the student clinic as well.
Yeah, you know, doing immigration work right now is unlike at any other point that I have been involved in this. I mean, I first started doing immigration organizing just before the first term of Trump, and it was nothing like what we were experiencing now. So, for example, last month, there were over 1,000 people in Massachusetts that were detained by ICE, often in the ways that many of you have seen of people who are masked showing up on the street and grabbing people. And that not only represents 1,000 people who've been detained, but it also represents the family. It represents the spouses, the children, the people who are their friends that also are now torn away. And Boston has been a big focus, actually, of ICE, the same we have seen with California, that the ICE director has very clearly said that there is an interest in focusing in on Boston. And, you know, what we've had to do in response to that of making sure we can stay safe while taking action, some of it's been small, but also things that we just never thought we were going to have to do. Like, we don't list our student names or profiles on our website before. It used to be a point of pride for students, but with the way that students have been targeted and many of our students being immigrants and first-generation Americans, it's something we haven't been able to do. But then there's also been other things too, like figuring out what happens if someone on our staff is detained and coming up with those policies. You know, many of you may know the story of Ruth, our development manager, who was detained earlier this year. And it was literally less than a week before that we were talking about as a team working on a rapid response policy. And less than a week later, she ends up being detained. Unfortunately, because of the organizing of folks that we're in community with, and many of you as well showing up, she ended up being released. And for anyone who's not shared this video, if you've seen this video, I'm sharing it in the chat because I think everyone should get to see it at some point, of Ruth coming out of the courthouse. And, you know, after she'd been released and had some weeks to just sort of figure out what's next, the question I had asked her is like, what do you want to do next? Like, do you want to continue being an organization that frankly is going to be targeted because we're doing immigrant justice work? And the reason why I asked that question is our perspective on this always with our students, with our community members, is we are not going to police what people can and cannot do. It is up to them to decide if they want to take on that risk. We will make sure people are very well informed and we will provide the resources they need to do what they want to do. But we're not going to tell anyone whose family members have been taken away, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. We want them to be able to decide that. And really, I think that's where a lot of our power comes from, and is a big part of what makes the coalitions we're a part of really powerful too, is leading with, you know, we're going to give you all the education you need, and then from there, we trust you to make things happen.
Wow. Yeah, and I will encourage everybody, if you're not looking at the chat, to please do so. And the you know, Ruth being detained was something that I think hit all of us very hard. And I was glad we were able to be helpful in any way that we could. I see there are a lot of questions in the chat, so rather than ask a prepared one, I want to be sure that we get to the questions that are that people are asking. So let's see. This one's for Boston CASA, and it is, what types of need do you have that would directly go to children? And the follow-up to that is, how do you share resources among all the CASAs? Are you independent from one another? So
Yeah.
Nicole, question for you.
And I have my program director with me. and which is wonderful. And that's Taisha, because Taisha, I call my staff, they are the absolute experts in everything because they are on the ground every single day. And so I'm fortunate that Taisha is here. So Taisha, why don't you take a stab at that?
Yes, so as we have stated earlier in our presentation, so different types of need, as Nicole said, our CASAs work directly in all the different collateral surrounding our young people. So they're in touch with educators, they're in touch with health providers. A lot of our young people are in DCF custody, so they're working with the social workers, and essentially I call our CASAs our connectors. They're able to, this power of collaboration that we're talking about and collectiveness, able to connect with each of the collaterals in the young person's life to really highlight what are some of the needs that need to be addressed. For example, we have a lot of our CASAs that show up to IEP meetings and may share things in which a lot of people will say that this young person is just acting out in class, but the CASA is looking at a strength-based lens of really seeing what's going on, what are some of the things attributing to this young person acting out, and speaking up in IEP meetings to share and advocate for that young person to get services, whether it be that adjustment to their IEP or a 504 plan or things like that too, are some of the examples our CASAs do, as well as just share with the court on these are the recommendations. We really highlight that to the court based on just conversations with those amongst the young person's life to say these recommendations are what we see is needed for the young person. In terms of sharing resources among other CASA programs, we have our Director of Community Engagement and Volunteer Services, as well as myself, that we connect with our other 5 other programs that Nicole stated across Massachusetts. We all do similar work, though it may vary based on the counties we serve, but whatever trainings that we have, we try to invite our other CASA programs too, but we are all independent, but under that national CASA umbrella. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And a question for Jonathan. There have been lots of effort to educate immigrants on know your rights. Said candidly, do immigrants actually have any rights these days? You know, when someone is picked up, no matter who they are, it seems they have 0 rights. And the person is looking for you to hopefully tell her she's wrong, but you know, I don't, you know, that may be a tall order. So balls in your court.
Yeah. You know, I'll give the short answer and the long answer. So the short answer to it is, you know, it doesn't matter what someone's rights are if they're not going to be enforced. And as many of you have seen time and time again, we have people who are certainly having those rights violated, and there's no real accountability mechanism to making it so ICE officers actually follow that. So, you know, that is a part of it. With that said, when we're talking about knowing your rights, there's so many other components to that as well. I mean, this includes everything from thinking about what do you do in the worst case scenario so that you can plan quickly. You know, what are the things that are going to be more risky, less risky? How do you get plugged into the right things? How do you share this network? And also the way that we often think about things like know your rights, though I would say at this point, we're less focused on know your rights and more other sorts of education. But even when we were doing those workshops, it was part education, but it was part a base building tool. And what I mean by that is a tool to bring people in to be a part of this community, to then think about how do we shift policy, because at the end of the day, that's the things that are really going to keep people safe. You know, one example that I can give for what this looks like in practice, this literally happened last week. Last weekend, we had our annual weekend training where we bring together all of our students from our different schools at UMass Boston. And a couple days after that, I was in the middle of lunch, and I got a phone call from a student, and I was like, oh, I'll pick it up. The student was like, so I just drove past an ICE vehicle, and I know we just talked about this during the training. I'm going to get out of the car and try and figure out what's going on. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm on the phone with you. Let's figure this out. And fortunately, he was able to get that family connected with an attorney, getting legal support, figuring out where they were going. And that is so critical because right now, especially, we're having a lot of families shipped up to Buffalo when they're detained, and it's really hard to get them connected to legal support, have them connected to their family, make sure they're getting what they need when they're shipped out of the state so quickly. And so that sort of intervention in part was because the family knew, okay, here's what we need to do, and also our student knew, okay, here's what we need to do, and provide that sort of fighting chance for them to get a little bit more help. So yeah, knowing your rights is not the only thing that's going to protect you, but it helps provide some of that framework. And for anyone here who's interested in learning more about all those different sorts of skills and things like that, like I said, we have a workshop happening on the 18th. Would love for people to join us at that and learn more about, what can you do in scenarios like that as well.
So in there'll be something there is something in the chat to sign up, and I've signed up, so I look forward to seeing others of you there. So the next question is for everybody, and I'm going to start with Hema. And the question is, what moments prompt you to feel most proud of the work you are doing and the impact your organizations are able to have at this moment?
Yeah, so many moments. I think that when you lead a coalition, oftentimes it is a tender navigation of sometimes you're a movement leader, sometimes you quietly listen in a way of following what is most needed. Both of those are happening, and it's almost a dance of sorts of leading and following. And when these conditions on our work, this national climate descended upon this field, I am so proud of our community, of our coalition, of the JDI board, of our members, and the courage that was shown across the coalition in saying, yeah, we are not going to see the values of this field roll back to erase immigrant identities, to erase trans identities, to demonize inclusion work, equity work that this field has fought so hard to just begin to make progress in. And so we are part of 2 national lawsuits challenging those conditions. And I think it is a real point of pride that has been with so much support from our membership and from the larger community and our partners. So that feels like that value that we hold of solidarity in community. And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Nicole?
So National CASA receives a significant portion of its funding from the federal government. And at one point, they lost federal funding. And they have since gotten it back. But one thing that they had to do is to remove anything DEI related from their website, from trainings, et cetera. And that is one of the things that both myself and my staff and my board of directors absolutely refuse to do because we serve such a diverse population, and we had to hold truth to those who were serving. And I was really proud of my board of directors, especially. And I would say the other piece is, and it's actually what drew me to Boston CASA. We really do have some incredible volunteers, and they step up in ways that they really are earthly angels, in ways that they step up and step in. Right now with SNAP benefits perhaps being completely taken away as of next week, we have CASAs who want to fill the gap somehow, for families who lose their benefits. Now, we're not, we don't want to conflate, the volunteer work. We're not a service provider, but it's just the fact that they have such big hearts, and they're willing to go above and beyond. And it's just a reminder to me, in such with all the negativity that's going on in this world, that there really, really are some good people out there. And so I'm proud of our CASAs. I'm proud of my board. I'm proud of my staff for filling in and for holding true, to the fidelity of our values when it matters the most.
When it's tough, right? When the going
Yeah.
gets tough. Yeah. Thank you, Nicole. And Jonathan, same question for you, although perhaps your student, who leaves training and identifies, right, intervenes, but I won't fill in the question answer for you. But that was a very impactful story you shared right before I asked the question.
Yeah, there's this great quote that I'm going to share in the chat as well, which I feel like captures often what makes me most feel that sense of pride. The quote says, "They have to be given space to breathe and stumble. They have to be given time to develop and to reveal what they can do. There are no soloists after all. This is group improvisation." And the reason why I love that quote is I think it captures what I often experience with our students. I remember, that day with Ruth, for example, actually the student I mentioned before, Jose, he ended up, I don't know if it was so much calling out of work or telling work, hey, I'm not showing up today. I got to go show up for the organization that showed up for me because this is what's going on. And, when we were there, again, we were asking people to mobilize in less than 7 hours in a very public display of support, and having students be the ones who showed up and were like, "Okay, guys, we're getting into action. We're making this happen. Who needs to be where?" And at one point, we knew we needed to have some people inside the courthouse, and we were like, "Okay, who's going to do that?" And all the people who were the first people to raise their hands that were there was all of our students. And when I think about like what am I most proud of, it's seeing that growth in students and seeing the impact they have and being able to just be like, I don't know, the cliche of it, of like, the kids are okay, the kids are okay. And, I feel grateful that that is what I'm surrounded by. And that's what I'm most proud of in our work.
Thank you. Last question is for you all, each of you personally, and you've shared a lot of the challenges that you and your organizations face. And I think, I mean, in fact, we know that this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? And it's not, and I don't mean to be a doomsayer, but I don't think there's any immediate light at the end. That it's a long tunnel and the light is dim at the end right now. So we'd really appreciate hearing from you how you and your peers are maintaining your stamina, what you do for your own energy and replenishment. What are your sources of personal energy and hope? And I'll let you, whoever would like to go first, would love to hear what keeps you going.
Well, I will say, I'll go first and say that what truly keeps me going is the mission of our organization. Regardless of what is going on, the things that are happening are real and they're having real impacts. And we're working with children and families who are being affected. And so you had mentioned earlier, Penny, that it's when things are really hard, that we've rolled up our sleeves and we're holding true to the fidelity of who we are and what we do. This is the time to really and truly realize the missions of our organizations. It's when things are really hard, and things are really, really tough right now. And so, we all get tired. But when I think about our families, when I think about immigrants who don't have an option or a choice in this to go take a bath and, get their nails done or their hair, or whatever it is that you do, that's what keeps me up at night. It keeps me strategizing. We have to have hope. This is a time that we absolutely have to have hope, because we have to stay in the work and stay focused on our missions. So that's what, and this is what we talk about even amongst some of my peers. It is about the real stuff about what's going on, and how do we work together to try to move the needle or try to keep people safe for our families and our children
Thank you. I'm getting a little, so Heyman, would you like to share your,
Sure.
no,
Yeah, I mean, as I was listening to your question, Penny, and also seeing the one about what it's like to be an executive director in this moment, in this time, and holding both of those in my mind. And I think, well, the one half of the answer is I am tired. Like we are, I've been in this role for a year now, and amidst that, just navigating the bombardment of information is overwhelming. And what brings me light and hope, and I do see actually a light through that tunnel, is opportunities to gather with other coalitions like ours, with other movements that are, there's some, first of all, there's active strategizing right here on the Zoom screen about what is possible and what can happen next, right? And to know that that is happening not only across the Commonwealth, but across the country, across the world, like that brings me a lot of hope to really envision what we are building, the world we want to see, right? The world we want to see for not just ourselves, but whether it's the students Jonathan's working with or the kids Nicole's working with, like the in the practice that I am part of, like 7 generations forward, let's imagine the world we want to build and see what that looks like. And to begin to see a commonality across so many social justice movements and people, that gets me really excited when I see some of those visions emerging.
thank you. And this community, right, is part of that, which we
Absolutely.
Jonathan, you get to be the final speaker on a challenging question.
Yeah, I mean, Nicole and him have just so, I mean, captured that vision, that hope. I mean, that is so critical. For folks that don't know Miriam Kaba, amazing organizer, who's also captured some amazing thoughts in some writing. And she often talks about how like our role as organizers is offering a vision of how things could be. And I think that sort of hope is what drives me. And I think something I'm very fortunate of, in part being from Denmark, which, has the cliche of being the sort of idyllic place, which I can tell you as far as them treating immigrants is far from that. But I've had this experience, though, of seeing how very different a society can be organized. But I also grew up in a radically different way as well. I grew up in an intentional community down in Maryland. Everyone ate meals together 7 days of the week. All decisions in the community were by consensus. So imagine, trying to get your family all to decide what you're going to eat one night. This was, 30 people deciding everything from who remember is going to be added, how are things going to be decided. All things in the community were bought collectively. And so I've had this very fortunate experience of seeing how radically different people can live. And I think sometimes it's hard trying to get people to be convinced of what that other world is possible for us to imagine that. And I'm fortunate to have seen aspects of that. But something I often, if you're ever struggling with imagining, is that other world really possible? Something that an organizer shared with me, which I really liked, is if you can imagine yourself back in kindergarten, first grade, or something like that, what was that world that you envisioned was going to be like when you were an adult? Was it one where people were getting picked up off the street by mass people, or was it like you were just going to go around and have fun and you wanted to hug everyone and you just want to play games all the time? And isn't this so great? It's new people, it's fun people. Like that is a world that is also possible here as well. And let us hold on to that youthful joy and understanding that a different world is possible. And let's bring that into reality in the work that we do.
Oh, what a perfect close. Thank you so much. I want to thank all of you for joining us this evening, for the hard work that you do, for bringing that commitment and sense of mission and purpose to both this evening, as well as for the people you serve. You make our TPC community so rich for everything that you do. And I want to invite Kelsey to close us out. And again, thank you so much. I feel so enriched for having been with you this evening. And I want to invite everybody to be sure to look at the calls to action in the chat. In addition to the supporting immigrants that Jonathan mentioned, I know JDI has some programs coming up, as well as Boston CASA. So please, if you feel the call to action this evening, please act on it and take this opportunity to support these three great organizations. And Kelsey, it's all yours.
Yes, many thanks to you, Penny, and also Sarah as our leaders of the Education Committee, also to our speakers, Hema, Jonathan, and Nicole. And then lastly, just want to thank our TPC volunteers, Sherry, Susan, and Jennifer. All of your work has been very appreciated tonight. Tonight was valuable in the way that our speakers highlighted the power of collaboration and just how many hands are necessary to create the solutions that we're seeing changing lives on the day-to-day. We hope that you'll continue to engage in conversations like these, and also recognizing that building community with others is really necessary at this point in our society right now. So we do want to also take a moment to highlight some of the events that are coming up soon. So on October 31st, you can join TPC members for an evening of dinner and comedy in Natick. Then on November 5th, we have a TPC new member social at Cambridge Side Galleria at 5:30. We also have another virtual social on November 6th. I see Tracy's on the call, so thank you so much, Tracy and Leslie, for that. On November 20th, there will be a reunion for TPC fellows at Hemingway in Barnes at 6 p.m. And also, applications for the TPC fellowship are available until November 16th. So if you know any women who are between the ages of 21 and 35 who are interested in growing as philanthropists and even just leaders in general, please, please, please share the application with them, and I'll drop a link into the chat shortly. Also, we heard earlier about SCIJ's Zoom that they're going to be doing on November 18th. I believe a link was shared in the chat, so please do not hesitate to click on that if that is useful for you. And then as we close up this grant season, we will be having our last grantee dialogue, which will be on Thursday, December 4th with Girls Leap and Family Health Project. So we have a lot of great events coming up and really hope that you can join us. But other than that, thank you again. Please do not hesitate to leave your feedback in the chat or even send us an email so that we can understand any details that you'd like to share about your experience tonight. I just would also like to highlight that TPC is a community of women that really wants to continue having these conversations on a deeper level. So we invite you to please join us at some of these future events so that we can make that possible. That's it. And thank you again. And we hope that you have a wonderful evening. Good night.
So this ends, as we said, this ends the formal portion of the meeting. We understand you may need to sign off. If you'd like to stay on for a few minutes and just have anything informal that you'd like to discuss, our esteemed speakers will remain with us for just a few minutes. So happy to open any open conversation. If anybody has any follow-up questions or comments, we welcome them.
Yeah, Majean, can you turn off the recording?